sharp remark at Chen Mo. And you're not planning to come empty-handed, are you? He continued mocking. How much did you give as a red envelope, 10 or 50 yuan? The sarcastic remarks made the group burst into uncontrolled laughter, showing no intention of hiding their disdain for Chen Mo. Despite this, he remained calm, acting as if nothing was happening. This made Zhao Gang feel nervous for him. As tensions escalated, Jiang Yao stepped in to defend Chen Mo, criticizing their rudeness. However, instead of making them stop, it only made them look down on Chen Mo even more, thinking he was so weak that he didn't dare to speak up for himself. Chen Mo slowly placed his cup down, calmly looking straight at Chu Hao, and in a gentle voice, he asked, "You think I'm easy to bully, don't you?" Before Chu Hao could answer, Wang Li interrupted with a sneering tone. "With someone like you, he doesn't need to care." Jiang Yao felt insulted and angrily warned that if they continued speaking like that, they should leave. Wang Li immediately lowered his tone, pretending to reconcile in order to calm her anger. But in his heart, his desire for revenge grew stronger. He had a plan to turn Jiang Yao into his plaything, just waiting for the right opportunity. Chen Mo could clearly see the dark plot in Wang Li's eyes, and silently decided that if they targeted him, he could endure, but if they targeted his people, he would not stand for it. Shortly after, he secretly made a hand seal, preparing to deploy a secret technique. At that moment, Jiang Yao's mother unexpectedly appeared, holding the red envelope Chen Mo had left on the table. Jiang Yao curiously opened it and was completely surprised to find a large sum of money inside. The friends around her were also stunned. Chen Mo remained calm, simply answering Jiang Yao's question, saying it was just a small token of his sincerity. However, Jiang Yao's mother thought the amount was too much, and after some thought, she decided to accept only a portion as a symbolic gift, asking Jiang Yao to return the rest. After being persuaded by her, Chen Mo reluctantly took back the money, which relieved Jiang Yao's mother. Zhao Gang, standing nearby, took the opportunity to taunt their friends, asking if anyone still dared to say that Chen Mo didn't bring anything with him. His words slapped the others in the face, leaving them silent. But Wang Li was the angriest, his face darkened with humiliation. In his heart, he swore not to let this matter slide. He stood up, threw a hateful look at Chen Mo, and coldly said, "I'm going to the bathroom." As Wang Li left, the others started whispering, clearly seeing how embarrassed he was, but soon they turned their attention to something else. Their natural tendency to stir trouble returned. Meanwhile, Chen Mo calmly continued enjoying his food, maintaining an entirely composed demeanor. But in his heart, he understood that Wang Li was definitely calling someone to stir up trouble in order to salvage his dignity. What a fool! Not long after, as everyone continued chatting, a loud shout was heard from outside, and a group of very arrogant-looking individuals barged in, demanding to see the owner of the restaurant. Seeing the smug expression on Wang Li's face, Chen Mo immediately understood that these were the people he had called. Jiang Yao tried to stay calm and stepped forward to intervene, asking them to leave since the restaurant didn't accept unfamiliar guests that day. But not only did the group refuse to leave, they also began to tease her, which only made her more uncomfortable. Jiang Yao's mother could no longer bear it, and seeing her daughter being insulted, she shouted loudly, "What do you want?" One of the group members laughed loudly and said, "This area is managed by Zheoho. If you want to do business here, you have to follow his rules." Jiang Yao's father stepped forward and asked, "How much does Zheoho want?" The leader of the group replied without hesitation, 300 million every year to ensure peace. Despite the restaurant owner's objections, Zheoho calmly sat down in a chair, exhaled a puff of smoke, and challenged, "Are you going to pay or not?" Jiang Yao's mother, furious, couldn't hold herself back and shoved her husband aside, angrily shouting, "How dare you collect protection money here? Do you even know what you're saying?" Her strong words enraged Zheoho, who immediately ordered his men to call for reinforcements. Seeing the situation escalate, Jiang Yao's friends quickly found reasons to leave, none of them staying to help. Jiang Yao didn't bother trying to hold them back. Chu Hao couldn't accept this and angrily scolded the others. "When Jiang Yao is in trouble, you all just leave. What a bunch of cowardly rats," he added with contempt, Anyone who leaves now shouldn't even think of being acquaintances anymore. Chu Hao's words made the group pause. He then walked up to Jiang Yao and confidently declared, "I'll handle this. They won't dare do anything." He didn't forget to mock Chen Mo. "You're good at giving money, but just pretend to be impressive." Hearing this, Chen Mo finally broke his silence. He exuded a powerful aura that left everyone around him stunned. Chen Mo coldly looked at Chu Hao and said, "Say one more word, and I'll kill you." The pressure from Chen Mo caused both Chu Hao and the thugs to freeze in shock. No one expected a student to have such a terrifying presence. Soon after, Xiaoho's men arrived, all of them thugs with rough looks. After hearing Xiaoho explain the situation, they laughed mockingly, clearly accustomed to such things. As the situation grew more tense, Chu Hao tried to plead, "Please, let this go for my sake." The leader glanced at him in surprise and asked, "Does your family own a pig slaughterhouse?" Hearing this, Chu Hao breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that his family's reputation would help him avoid trouble. But immediately after, he received a resounding slap from Xiaoho, knocking him to the ground. "Even your father wouldn't dare ask me for favors," Xiaoho said coldly. Seeing Jiang Yao's friend being slapped, her mother became even more agitated, intending to rush up to intervene, but Chu Hao had already gotten up, his face full of anger. "You said if I stepped in, you'd let it go," he said. His words made everyone around realize the truth. Chu Hao had called these people. Jiang Jiao was also furious and shouted at Chu Hao, "You're such a coward." Seeing Chu Hao's stunned expression, Jiao sneered, "I was just joking. What if I change my mind now?" These words shattered Chu Hao, and he lost all his confidence, trembling as he left the restaurant, leaving everything behind. Soon after, Jiao ordered his men to destroy the restaurant. The sound of clubs smashing and furniture breaking quickly turned the restaurant into a wreck. Jiang Yao's parents stood helplessly, their hearts full of bitterness. Jiang Yao stood frozen, feeling as if all her dreams and hopes were collapsing before her eyes. Just as she was about to rush up to stop them, Chen Mo gently held her hand and said, "Let them destroy it. Whatever they break today, I'll make them pay 10 times the amount." Seeing Chen Mo's confident attitude, Jiang Yao agreed without hesitation. In her past life, when Chen Mo was in despair, she had stayed by his side and helped him through dark times. In this life, he would be the one to protect her. After a moment of silence, Chen Mo calmly asked, "Are they done yet?" This question immediately caught Xiaoho's attention. He narrowed his eyes and said with disdain, "Who are you to interfere with my business?" Chen Mo shrugged and answered calmly, "I'm the one you can't touch." Hearing this, Xiaoho and his thugs laughed mockingly. A high school student daring to speak so arrogantly, he must be scared out of his mind. Ignoring their sarcasm, Chen Mo continued, "Pay 10 times the damages and apologize, then maybe I'll let you go." Nearby, Zhao Gang couldn't believe what he had just heard and desperately tried to pull Chen Mo away, saying, "Go back, don't cause more trouble." Jian Jia's mother was also anxious. She thought that if money could solve the problem, it would be best to use it, as she didn't want her family to be involved. Meanwhile, Chu Hao stood among the crowd, watching with glee. He thought Chen Mo would soon be beaten into a cripple, and he believed it was well-deserved. Xiaoho, however, began to suspect that there might be some powerful force behind Chen Mo. But if there wasn't, this boy would not be able to leave here in one piece. When he heard Chen Mo declare that he would handle things himself, Xiaoho was enraged. "Today, I will take one of your legs," he threatened, but this only made Chen Mo smile faintly. It had been a long time since he heard such threats. Xiaoho immediately ordered his men to rush in and attack. Although Jiang Yao's mother tried to offer money to settle the matter, he refused, insisting that Chen Mo had to be dealt with. Chen Mo charged straight into the group of thugs, throwing powerful and precise punches. Each of his movements was light yet full of force, leaving the thugs unable to react. Soon, one by one, they fell to the ground, groaning in pain from his overwhelming strength. This scene left Jiang Yao stunned, her eyes wide with amazement. Zhao Gang also couldn't believe what he was witnessing. After all the years they had known each other, he had never known Chen Mo was so skilled in fighting. In another corner, Chu Hao's eyes widened in horror, muttering in disbelief. How is this possible? He's just a useless person. Seeing all of Jeoho's men defeated, Jeoho immediately knelt down, begging for mercy and promising to compensate for all the damages. Jianjiao didn't miss the opportunity and demanded that he apologize to her parents and promise never to harass them again. Despite his hatred, Jeoho had no choice but to bow his head and apologize. I was blind and didn't recognize the mountain, he said. From now on, not only will I not cause trouble, but I will also ensure this restaurant remains safe. As for the compensation, Jiangiao's mother smiled and said there was no need for 10 times the amount, just the right price would do. Once everything had settled, Jeoho turned to ask Jiangiao for her opinion. When she agreed, he led his men away in shame. After the situation calmed down, Chen Mo didn't stay long. Before leaving, he told Jiangiao to call him if anything happened. The next day, at the Kim family's home, where the two elders had previously received Chen Mo's talisman, Kim Jong-un respectfully welcomed him. In contrast to this politeness, Chen Mo remained indifferent and bluntly stated, "Let's get to the point." Kim Pi-yun, the granddaughter of the elder, stood behind him, visibly displeased. She thought that Chen Mo was being too rude. Although he was a guest, he acted as if he were the master. Kim Jong-un understood that Chen Mo didn't like beating around the bush, so he immediately addressed the issue. "First of all, I want to thank you. The talisman you gave cured my wife's illness." Chen Mo simply nodded and replied, "This was just a mutually beneficial transaction. No one owes anyone." Then, Kim Jong-un asked Chen Mo to check his own health. This was the real reason for inviting him here. Chen Mo instructed him to gather all his strength and throw a punch. Although it was a bit confusing, Kim Jong-un did as instructed, using all his strength to deliver the strongest punch. After observing Kim Jong-un's movement, Chen Mo quickly realized he was an internal martial artist. Regarding his health, Chen Mo concluded that all he needed was a spirit pill to replenish his vital energy. Upon hearing this, Kim Jong-un was overjoyed. This ailment had tormented him for decades, causing unbearable pain each time it flared up. Famous doctors had been unable to find a cure. He even promised to share half of his fortune if Chen Mo completely cured him. Hearing this, Kim Pi-yun immediately intervened, advising her grandfather to reconsider. She felt it was untrustworthy to make such a conclusion just by looking at him. At this point, Chen Mo slowly explained that he didn't have an illness. The problem lay in the fact that his cultivation method was incomplete, which caused years of stagnant energy in his meridians. Moreover, his internal injuries from his youth